Greetings and welcome to the July edition of The Place to Be, Oshkosh. I'm your host, John Neiman, with Oshkosh COTS. I'm glad that you could join us again. I guess the question that we all are asking ourselves is, where did the summer go? We're talking about the month of July now, and we've had some really hot weather. Let's talk about our sponsors. Who makes this show possible? Could not do this show without the Oshkosh Herald, a wonderful community newspaper. I love it because it's always filled with current news and lots of pictures of what's going on in our wonderful community. Also then our set design is from Brian at U-Bloom, which is on Witzel. He does wonderful stuff. If you haven't been there, stop in. His garden center is great. He has a wide variety of plants, all different, all wonderful, and you can grow them. Let's talk about July and what's going on. Well, first of all, I'm really excited because we have the 4th of July Community Parade coming up. And that is going to be cool. Once again, fireworks by Festival Foods. So please join me on July 4th as I do the commentary for the Oshkosh 4th of July Parade. Also, what's going on in our community? There's so much going on for you to do a lot of it outside. Of course, we have Waterfest on Thursday evenings. We have the Farmers Market on Saturday. There's garden walks coming up in our community. So much stuff going on. And of course, at the end of the month comes our annual Air Venture, EAA. So there is something for everyone to do here in Oshkosh, which is the place to be. Stay tuned for our second segment. We'll be right back, and we'll have a special guest with us, and we'll learn more about COTS in Oshkosh.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to our July edition of The Place to Be Oshkosh. My guest for this month's show is going to tell us a lot about something new in our community called COTS. So let's welcome Deputy Director of COTS, Candace Lane.
Hi, John.
Thank you for being on the show. I think the timing of all of this is perfect because you're a great ambassador for COTS, but I bet you people in the community are thinking to themselves, what is COTS? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your role first of all.
Sure. So I serve as Deputy Director of COTS, and really what that means is I oversee operations across our 5 shelters. So we started in 1998 in Appleton. Currently we have a single men's and single women's shelter. And then we also have a 3rd transitional shelter for our graduate program. And then most recently in August 2020, we did a soft opening here in the community serving single women. And then most recently, with a new purchase of a new building on Keller Street, we serve single men as of April of 2022. So I oversee operations for those buildings as well as staff, donor development, residents, and et cetera.
PR, marketing.
Yeah, the whole gamut.
We've done some of the tour together of
Yeah.
going out and talking to people because homelessness is a big topic in this community. Mm-hmm. And can you talk briefly about what sets COTS apart? What makes it different than a shelter?
Sure. So COTS, our mission really, what we say is to end homelessness across the greater Fox cities. However, how we do that is we bridge the gap that we see that happens between emergency crisis care and independent living. So too often across all of our communities, we automatically assume that if someone is really working the wheels under their bus, getting their, overcoming their barriers, getting their things together, they're cycling through emergency crisis care, we automatically assume that as soon as they're employed, they're going to get into independent housing. And quite often, there's this whole subset of barriers that has prevented them in the past. And that's where COTS comes in. So like I mentioned, in 1998, we were founded by Father Orville Jansen in Appleton. However, that mission has really grown to serve not necessarily what we have probably stigmatized homelessness as here in the community, but really grown to serve a multitude of subsets of individuals beyond just generational poverty. But now what we're seeing are a lot of individuals that are being affected by situational poverty. So here in Oshkosh, we were tapped on the shoulder a handful of years ago because that gap was identified. There's all of these agencies in town that do incredible work in crisis care, treatment, sober living, but then there's a space before you get into other programs that really assist with independent housing, transitional housing, or like low-income housing. And there wasn't a place to have a program that would serve those individuals. So these groups in Oshkosh were looking for what would that solution be and came upon COTS in Appleton. So it's been quite the adventure getting COTS established here in the community. It's not just been a 1, 2, 3 step process, but now that we're here and we are truly established for the sustainable future, our goal is to teach people about what the COTS program is, because it is very different than what you said as just a shelter.
Right. Let's talk about that too, because we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Carlene and the Community Foundation. So how long have you guys been working together? Because you said it wasn't overnight. How long have you been working together to find a place to have COTS?
A very long time. So really, when you back it up a few years, Oshkosh Area Community Foundation was very substantial in tapping on the shoulders of COTS and the COTS board in saying, we understand that this is a solution that we're identifying as something that could potentially work in the Oshkosh community.
And if we go to the screen, they heard the word Carlene.
There she is. Yeah, she's volunteering.
There's Carlene
with
and
the
actually
team.
the entire group from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, who not only helped with the deal,
Yes.
but they also came and spent a morning painting.
Correct.
And volunteering and giving back. So they're a really good crew. That was great of the crew to hear Carlene and to put her picture up.
timing.
Perfect.
So they've looked at COTS as one of the one of the options that could be a solution in the community. And so that conversation happened quite a long time ago. However, we needed to ensure two things. First and foremost, our Appleton programs have been so successful. We wanted to ensure that that foundation was going to stay. And then secondly, we needed to find the right place for those shelters. So our first building that we serve single women with, that's actually in partnership with the Oshkosh Housing Authority.
Okay.
So they've been an incredible partner for us. We have the building that used to be the old Summit House on Harrison Street. That's an 8-bed capacity. And then we were working with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation to identify that next space. A couple different options would come up. There were a couple things that fell through. And then most recently, we were able to do a really special, what we felt was really special sale between the Father Carr's previous women and family shelter to our COTS organization. So really that transfer between nonprofits was really important to us as well. And that building just works perfectly for starting out a program because we already operate in single occupancy, which means an individual gets their own room, they have an ensuite bathroom, and then they have the conglomerate spaces for making meals together or doing our classes and our programs and living rooms, etc. So that building really is a perfect fit for what we needed and really came at the exact time that it needed to come.
And you're right in the right place. It's on 2 bus routes. It's by all the area businesses. It's right off the highway. I think it's wonderful. Let's talk about, before we get into the volunteer opportunities, let's talk about the programming, because that's what makes COTS successful. And in my time there, I'm amazed at the programming, at what is done. You're not just feeding them and giving them a place to stay. There's so much more.
There is so much more. And I mean, that's the biggest piece of COTS is saying what the program is, like going back when we said it's not just a shelter. So we focus on 4 key pillars. The first pillar of our programming is what we call housing stability. So an individual does apply and they interview for the program. Now we do background checks. However, everyone in our within our shelters is either has a background of justice involvement or maybe a broken financial background. So we don't necessarily have anything that would cut someone off from being accepted into our shelter. What we say is it has to be a time that you're ready to make a change or you're ready to invest in yourself to get to that next step. So they apply, they interview, and once they come to live with us, like I mentioned, they have single occupancy living. So they have a bedroom and they have a bathroom. And the biggest piece for us is we take care of all their basic needs. Their food is taken care of. They receive brand new bedding, brand new towels, personal hygiene products, food. So really an individual who is worried about their basic needs or where they're going to sleep next or where they're going to access these items, that's all taken care of. And that's a huge donation from the community members.
And there we go. There we go again.
Yeah.
And we're showing a room because COTS did a lot of refurbishing and remodeling there to get it done. So they're showing the room. So, and what I like about this too, Candace, is that the respect.
Yes.
We're giving respect to the residents. It's their room to take care of, and they have to take care of it,
Yes.
just like you would anywhere else. If you get an apartment or a house, you have to take care of it.
And we find dignity in having new things, so that's why it's very important for us to provide brand new bedding and brand new towel sets. And an individual, when they leave COTS, they take all of that with them. So that's why we're always asking if community members want to get involved. Those are really easy things to collect and donate for brand new items for someone who might not have had that access before.
Right.
So within that housing stability pillar, though, that's from day one we're looking at. For our end goal for an individual, it's 100% trying to get an individual into self-sustainable, self-sufficiency, independent living. So really everything that we're measuring all of our work on in our program is against reoccurrence rates back into the homelessness population. So we're looking at what are solutions. Now that is really changing right now when we're in an affordable housing crisis. It's not as simple as us saying, well, we're going to put you on the waiting list for low-income housing, because those waiting lists right now are astronomical. So we're really looking at how can we as a program be more creative in providing solutions for our residents when they're ready to move on.
And I'm going to toot your horn because you probably won't. But there are a lot of programs out there where we do it all the time. We're a resource guide. Here's the phone number for Advocate. Here's the phone number for Salvation Army. But you actually go out and meet and speak with the landlords to develop.
I try.
Yeah.
I do try.
Yeah.
I say this all the time, and I don't ever mean it from a soapbox moment or soapbox standpoint. We truly, truly are in the Oshkosh community, the Greater Fox Cities, a very resource-rich area. So we do utilize all of these agencies in town, and I think it's really important to say that because we are not coming into the community to replace anything.
Right.
We're here to be in abundance with everyone else. And I think sometimes that's a hard concept to grasp. So we do constantly refer for transitional housing or independent housing after our transitional shelter to AVCAP or to other programs that are out there to assist. But there's just so much need right now that's where we've had to be getting a little bit more creative. Some of those creative solutions look like assisting residents from the get-go on budgeting for a small amount of cash to lay down for landlords to be 3-4 months of rent ahead of time. Some of that is, like you mentioned, going and talking and speaking with landlords when I'm able and welcomed to do so. I take advantage of all those opportunities. We look at roommate opportunities. Family reunification is very heavy right now to understand who can do that safely in an environment that promotes their recovery.
Right.
We look at all sorts of different solutions. And one of the best things about our program for COTS is that we are privately funded, so through a lot of grants and a lot of donor development, but we're able to transition very quickly in our operations based on the need because of that. So I bring that up because I mentioned that third building in Appleton is currently serving as our transitional graduate program. That's brand new to our program as of this last year. So in response to residents not necessarily finding the space they need to go after the program, we created a co-ed building where they're in a communal space. They're really all roommates. They work together on chores. They work together on meal schedules, who's cooking. Whereas in the program, it's a little bit more structured, but they're using all those skills to live together. And then they have an additional option to be there for an additional 2 years. So that's some of the solutions that we're starting, what we would consider our housing stability pillar.
And what I think about that is so very cool is you're giving, and we've talked about this, you're giving them the tools, but they're putting the tools to practice right away. You're not just saying, here's what you need, go. You're giving them the tools and they can practice how, it's not easy to live with other people.
No, it's not. We always say, y'all don't have to like each other, but you have to get along, and you have to learn respect for one another.
And that's one thing that I see with the residents I work with too, is the teamwork, the growth. It is like a family. And they care about each other, which I think is really important. So that nailed it with that first pillar. Let's talk about the other ones.
Yeah, so the second pillar is our education and employment. That's the biggest piece of what we do. So what changes, or what really sets us apart too in our program model, is that we have program fees per month. So when you look at the housing continuum, you have emergency crisis care or treatment programs or sober living housing. You have programs such as Father Cars, and they're all really amazing in that kind of that first front steps of the housing continuum. And they're usually all spaces that are free to a community member to utilize. Now you're taking that next baby step into independent living when you come to COTS with that monthly program fee. We have a $285 monthly program fee for 3 big reasons. First and foremost, an individual is going to start investing in their own solution. I get a lot of questions on if we're rent burdening individuals, and truly we're not, because if you look at someone who has come into a situation, whether it's generational poverty or situational poverty, there's something that happened there. So we look at, if it's one eviction, well, what led to that one eviction? It's probably some financial literacy challenges. Maybe there's some health barriers that came up, some family barriers, right? So those are all pieces that we're looking at. But from day one, we want to ensure that that program fee is something that you are routinely paying on time, especially for individuals who have a challenged background with financial literacy. Sometimes I have residents that are very honest in saying, I just didn't pay, I just didn't do it, and now they're learning the hard way.
Right.
We have individuals, both male and female, that have had very controlling partners where they've never had to do those things before. They don't have a rental record, so those are things we have to build for them. So there's just this whole gamut of reasons why someone might not have a background of paying on time. So getting into that routine is very, very important. And then third, a lot of the work that we do revolves around financial literacy. So ensuring that an individual is going to start budgeting per month for that housing piece is not only really important to our program, but also important to that self-sustainability later on. So going into that employment and education pillar, most of the individuals who come to us are employed, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have a stable employment background. So it's really interesting because on the outside, we look that in our communities, unemployment is low, everyone's hiring for $1 more, and everyone's chasing this higher dollar. But what our individuals need to learn, and what we try to teach, is first and foremost to slow down, to not make impulsive decisions. And often that means not jumping from job to job to get that higher dollar.
Right.
Because now what we're finding on that back end for individuals who are applying for housing is that landlords are looking at that employment history. So it's very, very important to start teaching that on the front end.
I think what you said there is really important, because my mother-in-law is in assisted living and she's 95. So she worries about the young people that come in and she doesn't see them again. And then they'll say, well, they took another job. Because like you said, it's that dollar. They're thinking more about the money and making more than actually staying at a job and building up that position. So when you go somewhere else, or when you go to rent, it says, oh, you've been with that job for 2 years. Or really important
It's super
piece.
important, right? Now on the other side of things, a lot of individuals who come to us are on SSI or SSDI. They're more than welcome to apply and live with us. And we have individuals that come after they've been released from incarceration. They come to us, maybe they're on supervision, and the DOC helps with like that first, second month program fee while we work to stabilize them. That's where our partnership with Riverview Gardens and Appleton comes into place. And with Riverview Gardens, they manage a program called Service Works, which is all around job training and placement programming. And we do that through sustainable enterprises such as agricultural farming and hydroponic farming. So most recently here in Oshkosh, when we came to our community here, we said, we will do the COTS program, but we want to do our whole successful COTS program, which also includes Service Works. So we most recently acquired the previous Creekside Aquaponics farm. So as you're driving north on 41, if you look on the left-hand side on that corridor, next to Coons RV, in the back, you'll see there's some greenhouses back there, and we do living lettuce back there. But as part of that program, it's a community corrections employment site. So for individuals who are on supervision, we can get them employed right away through that site, and then they're able to start budgeting, they're able to start that employment factor, and then we have the time to stabilize them while they've moved in, and then look for other gainful employment afterwards. So it really is another additional stepping stone for our individuals.
So I know we're going to get into that segue now, volunteering. So if people want to see Riverview Gardens, they can go and volunteer there.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Because you would not, when I started with COTS, I worked at the hydroponics and at Riverview Gardens, and it was so cool. The lettuce production, how they do it. I was planting tomatoes. I'm not sure if they took, but I was planting tomatoes. But for me, the best thing was working with the residents. They were there showing me what to do. They had such respect and they had such care for what they were doing. And I think what you're doing for that with your program is you're giving them self-worth.
Well, it's self-worth. There's dignity in work. But the other piece of that is really important, because in all the conversations I've had about coming to Oshkosh, there's been a few buzzwords that I've heard very often is, oh, they're just gardening. And they're not. They're not gardening at all. So first and foremost, Riverview Gardens has a contract with Feeding America. So they're growing all of this produce for Feeding America. We have a contract with Festival Foods. So the next time you're in Festival Foods and you're in the produce section, you'll see the clamshell living lettuce heads. Those are all out of Riverview Gardens operations. So it is a social enterprise that they're actually a part of, and they're working on teamwork, accountability, communication, scheduling, all of these factors of being a stable employee that I think you and I might take for granted because it's just what we know to go to work every day and work through things, but that doesn't mean that everyone else has those skills.
Right.
So that's really incredible for us to have that partnership, not only as a whole, but now bringing that to the Oshkosh community or Winnebago County. It was really important and a huge staple part of our program to be able to fulfill on this pillar of employment and education.
So we have two more pillars, but I told you this was going to go fast. We'll go to the pictures now just to talk, because I know people are saying, because they've already done it, they've already said, how can we volunteer with COTS? And I put something on my Facebook page, and that I was just so shocked. I put it on my Facebook page, and I said we could use help with landscaping with that. We had a mother and son come for 3 hours and trim the bushes and picked weeds and all that. So there is a lot to do. So if we go to the pictures, some of the pictures we have will show, those are donations. Overflowing, as Candace said, our community is a very giving, loving community. So those are just some of the donations that came in that will benefit our residents. Like you said, whether it's new towels, bedding, or supplies for the pantry. So that was a great one.
I think it's also really important beyond just, if you can donate towel sets and bedding, like that's really important. But I also think it's also important, if you're going to do things like gardening, understanding that our residents get in there with you and do it with you. So after that mother and son came and landscaped, our guys came and cleaned it up.
Yes.
So it's really important that they also really take pride in their space. We always say we work where they live. So it's very, very important for us to respect that. But other opportunities for volunteering beyond just donating items, which is hugely important to our organization, are items within the building, how to beautify it, painting, like you saw with the Community Foundation, But other things, so like I mentioned earlier, education is a huge piece of what we do. So we always look for outside experts to teach things that we don't know about. Even though our residents are make up like Rent Smart classes, and we have groups that come in and teach that, we're also looking for financial literacy experts. We have about 4 or 5 different groups in town that already do group and individual classes, but we're always looking for people who can be an expert in that. We have classes of people that come in that do mini legal clinics because there's not enough of that in town. We have individuals who have come in and done educational opportunities, how to fill out a FAFSA form. Like whatever you're an expert in, we're probably going to need it. So if you're willing to teach and learn and get into really working one-on-one, we're always looking for those experts as well in the community.
And that really is a nice thing to do. It's like mentoring, it's like coaching,
Yes.
but it's using your skills, because not all of us are great. I mean, math and science is not my forte, so I cannot help them with budgeting. I can give them the tools. You also talked about painting. Mm-hmm. We have tons of rooms that can be painted. So if there's any groups out there in our community, just please feel free to contact me. My information's on the screen. I told Candace this was going to go really fast. I'm going to have her mention the last 2 pillars. There are, but we're going to have you back to talk more about COTS.
Well, then the last 2 pillars of our 4 pillars of programming, the third is well-being. We specifically work with Partnership Community Health Center. I would say mostly every resident that comes to us has some sort of unmet behavioral health need. So Partnership is just amazing in assisting us to fast track some of these initial appointments. But they also work with all of our residents on insurance, primary care, and dental care. And then everything that we're doing, I mean, there's just so much more than this 20 minutes can allow for, but really goes to our 4th pillar, our pro-social connections. Looking at family reunification, maybe church groups, AODA support. What is that individual going to have for support once they leave COTS? Because we know that someone shouldn't be doing it on their own. Once they successfully graduate from our program, which means that they have found stable, safe housing, they enroll into what we call our aftercare follow-along positive placement program. That program is a part of the COTS program that provides them an additional 3 years of support. So we have a coordinator that has a cadence of contacting them, but we're always there for them as a centralized person in our community. Sometimes they call us for toilet paper and paper towel, and sometimes they say, hey, I'm having an issue with my landlord. We assist in those conversations. Maybe they need a new job, maybe they lost their job, but they always have someone centralized in the community to come back to help connect them to where they need to be.
And that's support.
Correct.
You know, when I listen to you talk, because you have such a cadence of how you say it, I kept thinking about kids start out in a dorm room where everything is taken care of for them, and then they want their own apartment like their sophomore year. And that's the big learning curve. It's almost like the same way with the program. You're giving them the tools, and then you're kind of helping them go along, because not everybody knows paying the rent on time, cleaning, what the landlord looks for. So it's amazing. Here we're going to go back because we are winding down. But again, if you're interested in helping out with COTS and volunteering in any way, whether it's a mentor, sharing your experience, or whether it's donating, because we have people that donate food supplies for us because our men love to cook. We just found that out too. They want to bake and they want to cook. Please feel free in contacting us. And it makes you feel so good to donate and to give back and to help others. We have a meal ministry. There's so much more that we can talk about. I also want to say, stay tuned to this show too, because something new is going to come to downtown Oshkosh as part of a care team that COTS is putting together, which they already do in Appleton. And it's involving not only our residents, but it's involving the community, which COTS does so very well. Our time is gone.
We'll need like 3 more of these.
But
Sorry, everyone.
I really appreciate this. Just to give you a glimpse of what COTS is all about, we thank Candace for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned, though, because we're going to talk more about COTS. But if you want more information on volunteering in our wonderful community at COTS, Oshkosh, men's or women's, please let me know. My information, my cell phone, my email's at the end. We have a meal ministry. You can mentor, you can coach, you can garden, you can paint. There's so much you can do, and just be a friend. So thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to join us on the 4th of July as Oshkosh Media covers the 4th of July parade. Thank you so very much. God bless, and we'll see you next time.